Hi everyone, welcome back to Talent Order's Breakfast Briefing. This week I'm joined by John White and we'll be discussing the impact COVID-19 is having on the risk and resilience market. John, thank you so much for joining me this week. Really appreciate you taking the time to give us your insights on this subject. So before we go into any questions, can you give the audience a little bit of background on your career history so they understand why I may be asking you these questions?
Sure, thank you very much. Well, hello everyone, I'm John White. I'm Director of Resilience and Commercial Strategy for Royal Haskoning DHB. I've been a resilience practitioner for almost 20 years now, a sort of a varied career. I spent a few years doing risk analytics, a few years running KPMG and also EY's resilience consulting practices, 3 years, 100 resilient cities, dealing with all kinds of climate adaptation and sustainability and urban regeneration challenges. And then for the last few years, I've been focusing on resilience within a digital context.
Brilliant, thank you for that. And how has COVID impacted your employment?
Well, it hasn't impacted my personal employment, but particularly at all. But I think it's impacted a lot of people's employment. I mean, if anything, it's probably kept me a little bit busier than I was before. It's an evolving situation, something that we need to continue to monitor. You know, a lot of my clients are continuing to deal with the challenges associated with it, both first order and second order challenges. So that's the direct impact and then the consequential business impacts of it. And I think really the true end to this story remains to be seen.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, resilience professionals especially have been incredibly busy throughout this period. And how do you believe the risk and resilience market has been impacted?
Well, again, really alluding to my earlier answer, I mean, it's kept us busy for a while. COVID is rather a unique, well, not unique, but a rare challenge for people that do what we do to plan for, because typically most things happen in a place and in a space and at a time. And COVID, whilst it started in a place and a space and at a time, is now happening everywhere all the time differently. And the virus itself continues to evolve as well. So for people who work in resilience, it's meant really reverse engineering much of the way that we would have historically approached things like this to find a new way of doing things. It's asked challenges of when does a crisis stop being a crisis and start being business as usual. It's posed questions around the role of the crisis and resilience team and the way that they would support management and leadership of an organization. It's uncovered a lot of unspoken truths about remote working and virtual working and our ability to do that. But it's also come at a great human cost. And whilst there's a lot to be learned from it, I don't think myself or really anyone that does the work that we do would ever have wanted it to be the case that we've got this information by this means.
Brilliant. And okay, and kind of coming off of that, so you've mentioned, when does COVID stop being kind of the initial impact? How do you think risk and the resilience market has kind of adapted as we've gone on, or will continue to adapt dealing with these challenges?
Well, as a provider of advice, services and solutions to organisation, the biggest adaptation that we've had to make is delivering services remotely rather than in person. Fortunately for me and my team, we've been working on that for an extended period of time already, because virtualization and the digitization of a lot of the work that we do is a trend that was around before COVID, and it's a trend that will continue to be around, hopefully, once COVID is gone. So I think we've actually been able to continue to deliver value to our clients, if not indeed deliver more in some ways. I mean, we're able to do the same stuff at a lower cost with a higher level of efficiency. which is really appealing. And the process of doing it virtually has helped the clients learn more about the way that their organizations work. I was actually able a few months ago to build a crisis management platform that worked everywhere all the time, cost very little, from the ground up, using some new online collaboration tools that are available. So, again, whilst we wouldn't want it to be the case, it's an exciting time to be in the industry.
Yeah, absolutely. I know, lots of people have had to play catch up, kind of going virtually, and that caused you guys especially to have a lot of work, say last March, April, May. So it's interesting to know that you were doing that beforehand. But no, a lot of catch up for a lot of companies, and I think now we're starting to see that's part of everyday life now. And we're used to I hate the phrase new normal, but we're used to it, I think, now, or at least adapted in that respect.
Well, I think so. I might just share a thought on that. I mean, funnily enough, it wasn't the early period of COVID that we were hyper busy, because that was the period at which all of the teams that we were supporting went sort of super insular because they were in full internally managing a crisis mode. So whilst at an executive level, I was occasionally called upon to share some thoughts and insights, it wasn't a time when large-scale consulting projects were firing off all over the place, because a lot of that stuff got put on hold, and indeed, much of it still is on hold. I mean, to talk about the new normal, COVID might be the current new normal and probably will remain the new future normal, if that's a thing. But really, the conversation that I'm having with a lot of my clients is all the things you were concerned about before this happened are still there. Some of them have been exacerbated because of the COVID pandemic. I mean, a hurricane or a tropical cyclone making landfall is bad at the best times, but if it happens at the same time as the capacity of the healthcare system in the area has been completely overwhelmed, things are, very serious very quickly. So the challenge that I'm working on with the clients that I'm working with at the moment is how can you take a team that has been stretched as thinly as any team can be stretched, a team that is dealing with this situation as much in their personal life as they are in their professional life, and how can we support them through, technology is a key lever for me in my role. How can we support them to continue to address some of the other existential threats that they were just starting to get their hands around, at the same time as they're managing the sort of never-ending evolution of a global pandemic?
Yeah, absolutely. And this next question may not have really affected you, but in terms of other people within your industry, what advice do you offer anyone looking for new employment opportunities, as many people are kind of in that situation at the moment across various industries? Have you got any kind of tips or wisdom?
Crikey, tips and wisdom. Don't give up. Persevere, try and develop a network. Sorry, I know these are awfully generic. I mean, I have an incredible amount of sympathy for people who are just trying to carve out a career in not just our sector, but in any sector at the moment. I mean, budgets are cut, belts are tight. Everybody tends to, which is ironically often the worst thing to do, but people tend to do the rabbit in headlights approach and think, well, if I stand still, nothing bad's going to happen to me. When actually the reality is, now is a time where some level of forced evolution might actually be good for the business and reduce some of the risks that they're exposed to. I think for me, the couple of trends that I would suggest people invest themselves in terms of thinking about how they can be relevant in this sector in the near-term future, is sort of digitization, virtualization, and automation. So, I mean, that's three, but that's one, right? Technology and climate risk. So when I started this game, I had a couple of years before the whole world went crazy about cybersecurity, and many organizations have done very well out of supporting client organizations in managing their cyber challenges. You don't need to look very far outside the first page or two of the nearest newspaper to realise that climate change is going to be the cybersecurity of the next decade. So I would encourage people who are interested in pursuing a career in this field to at least have something to say on those points. Right? I don't want 100 people all coming saying I'm going to be the next digital climate engineer, right? But these are topics that are relevant, and we're an issues-driven and a risk-driven industry, and that is the issue, and that is the risk that people are talking about outside of a global pandemic at the moment. So do your reading, keep up with the news. I don't expect you to have the answers, but it would be nice if you've got something interesting to talk about.
Yeah, I think that's great advice. I think, you know, when you are networking, you've got to have something to say and to discuss and to stand out a little bit as well. And if everybody's saying and doing exactly the same thing, then you may get lost, and kind of focusing on those areas is great advice. So thank you for that.
The other thing I'd share, right, is like, take a position. Don't be afraid to be wrong. There are very few breakthrough innovations that have ever happened in society because somebody incrementally improved on something that already existed. As a seasoned professional and reasonably experienced recruiter, I'm not expecting somebody of 21 years old to have the solution to life. You know, I'm looking for passion and drive and ideas and innovation. And I want, you know, people at my age are in the weird position that people older than us think we're going to fix the climate, and people younger than us think we're the ones who broke it. And we aren't going to get to where we need to be with more incremental ideas. You know, I have a mortgage and 2 kids, so I'm not perhaps able to take as much risk as I'd like with my career. But when you're young and you've got time on your hands, you know, really look at some of the issues that you want to make a difference in, and challenge some of the status quos, and come to people like me with these crazy ideas. We might not always be able to help you do them, but we would love to hear them.
Brilliant. I love that. So thank you. I really appreciate that. And they are all of my questions for today. Thank you for taking part. If anyone has any further questions for John, or wants the opportunity to be a guest on the Breakfast Briefing, please do email me on amy.morris@talentorder.com or message me via LinkedIn. I hope you're all staying safe and well. I'll see you next week. Bye.
Bye.